They say when you're about to die, you see your entire life flash before your eyes. They lied. The only thing Nick Gaucher could see flashing was Kirian Hunter's vampire fangs. That horrible sight froze him to place on the edge of the monoclinical staircase at the front of Kirian's sprawling antebellum mansion. I'm gonna die. Again. Yeah. Since he'd attempted to go to school about 22 hours ago and found that his principal had been eaten by a zombie, everything and its brother had been after him. Now his freaking boss was a vampire, it figured. So much for his paycheck. Unless the devil could cash it, Nick would never see a nickel of it. Would this day ever end? Dude, right now, you're the one who's about to end. That thought finally shattered the terrified fog in his head, which had held him immobile. Run, dude, run. He couldn't go downstairs because that's where Kirian stood. The only place to run was upstairs after his mother, who'd already gone into the bedroom. Kirian had loaned them for the night. She was completely oblivious to the fact that they were in mortal danger and that their blood was about to be drained. He spun around to warn her. Nick, wait! My gluteus maximus. Vampire was shy a few quarts of blood if he thought that Nick had any intention of not going Casper on him. I'm too young, too smart, and too good looking to die. Yeah, and then some. The world needed him to improve the gene pool. Not to mention, at 14, he hadn't even had his first date yet. He'd only just this night had his first kiss. He should have recognized that alone as a sign that the apocalypse was coming and that his death was imminent. As Nick neared the top of the staircase, Kirian jumped straight up from the floor 20 feet below and flipped over the shiny railing to land gracefully in front of him and cut off his escape. Kirian's black eyes flashed in the shadows. Dressed all in black and over 6 feet in height, Kirian made a deadly yet impressive sight even with his boyish blonde curls. There was no way he was going to get past him. Crapola. Nick skidded to a halt. What should he do now? His mom was in a bedroom a few feet behind Kirian. He'd yell for her, but the last thing he wanted was for Kirian to kill her too. Maybe if he kept quiet, Kirian would only drain him. It's not what you think, Nick. Yeah, right. I think you're a blood-sucking demon vampire who's gonna kill me. That's what I think. Before he could so much as blink, Kirian reached out and grabbed Nick's neck with some kind of vampiric death grip. He wanted to fight, but was as helpless as a pup being held by the scruff. With the inhuman strength you'd expect from the undead, Kirian halted Nick past his mother's temporary bedroom and into Kirian's upstairs office. As in the rest of the house, the floor-to-ceiling curtains were drawn shut to protect against the dawning sun. Something that should have clued Nick in that Kirian was a ghoul from the first moment he stepped into the mansion. The dark wood of the desk blended in seamlessly with the dark green walls. Without breaking a stride, Kirian flung Nick into the dark burgundy leather chair. When he started to run, Kirian slammed him back into it. Stop a minute and listen to me. I know I'm asking the impossible from you, but for once in your life, shut your mouth and open your ears. I'm not the one talking. Kirian snarled at him. Don't get smart with me. You want me stupid. Nick. Nick held his hands up. Fine. Just don't eat my mom, okay? She's had a bad enough life without becoming the bride of Dracula. I don't drink blood. He arched a brow at that. Yeah, right. I don't. I'm not a vampire. This from the one with long, freaky canines? Then what's with your particular dental problem, And don't even try to tell me they're fake, mister, and mini suits and fancy car, because you ain't the type to have them. You ain't the type to have false ones. And all that also says you have the money to fix them if you wanted to. Not to mention the fact that you don't go out in daylight. And how'd you ninja flip up the stairs just now if you're not one of the undead? I'm gifted. And I'm gone. Nick tried to escape, and again, Kirian body slammed him into the chair hard enough to get his attention. You know about Acheron, and you accept him. Why don't you trust me? Acheron Parthenopaeus was a giant immortal something. But even so, he'd been nothing other than nice to Nick and his mom. And most important, he ain't got no fangs, boss. Yeah, he does. He's just better at hiding them than I am. He's also my boss. Nick would argue he was full of cow manure, but that explanation actually made sense in a weird way. Ash was more than 11,000 years old and had seemed a particular friend for Kirian to have, but if the immortal giant was Kirian's boss, that explained it. Still, Nick wasn't a fool, and he accepted nothing at face value. For all he knew, Kirian was lying his fangs off. What line of work are you in? People protection, like saving punk kids getting beat to death by people who are supposed to be their friends, i.e. me getting shot by Alan and stomped to the ground by Tyree and Mike a couple weeks ago. That had been how the two of them had met, and what had led to his working part-time for Kirian after school. Kirian inclined his head to him. Exactly. Nick relaxed a degree as he remembered himself how much he owed Kirian, but for Kirian he'd be dead right now. So you're not going to attack my mother or suck my blood? Gods, no, I don't need the indigestion. You've caused me enough of a headache for one night. I don't need any more. Nick sat in Kirian's chair staring up at him. If Kirian wanted to kill him, he had plenty of opportunities. Instead, he'd protected both Nick and his mother and allowed them to spend the night in his mansion. If you want to know the correct term for me, I'm a dark hunter. Nick digested that word slowly, which means what? You hunt darkness? Yes, Nick, that's exactly what I do. There's just not enough of it. Now that was some sarcasm you could cut with a knife. Nick wasn't amused by it. So you're going to explain or not? We're immortal warriors who sold our souls to the goddess Artemis for her. For her, we fight and protect humanity from whatever stalks the night, trying to prey on them. For the most part, that means we track and slay demons, which are, to put it in your terms, you can relate them to vampires who live on human souls instead of blood. They take your soul into their body, and once it's there, it starts to wither and die. We have to kill the demon before the soul is completely used up. I don't understand. Why take souls? Kirian shrugged. It's what nourishes them. They have to keep a living soul in them or they die. That was harsh for them, and especially for the person they killed to get it. How do they take souls? Nick asked. No idea. I asked Asheron that question once and he refused to answer. He's good at that. So did he teach you that too? Or Kirian smiled, not the tight-lipped smile of the past. This was a full-blown one that showed off his fangs. He did indeed. I give you an A+ then. Kirian cocked his head and watching him as if waiting for Nick to run again. Are we good? Nick considered it. He probably should be terrified and bolting for the door, but Kirian had been there with him, fighting zombies and protecting his friends tonight. He'd opened his house to Nick and his mom. He seemed okay. You can trust him. For the first time, Nick knew who that weird deep voice in his head belonged to. Ambrose, his whacked out uncle who swore he was here to help him. Strange how everyone kept claiming that, but Nick. Nicky. They both jumped at the sound of Nick's mom in the hallway calling his name. Kirian went to the door and opened it. We're in here, Mrs. Gaucher. Stepping into the room, she looked around suspiciously as if she expected to catch them doing something illegal, unethical, or unnatural. Tiny, petite, and beautiful, with bright blue eyes, his mom had always reminded him of an angel, especially when she wasn't wearing makeup, something he hated on her. Her blonde hair was rumpled, and she was dressed in a black t-shirt that went all the way down to her knees. It looked like Kirian had loaned it to her to sleep in. At 28, she was really young to have a kid his age, but that had never mattered. It had always been the two of them against the hostile world. Nicky, is everything okay? It's all good, Mama. She gave Kirian an arch stare that said she didn't believe Nick's answer. You sure, Boo? Absolutely. Mr. Hunter was just telling me that I have tomorrow off since I worked so late tonight. Isn't that right, Mr. Hunter? There was an amused gleam in Kieran's eyes as he realized Nick had manipulated this situation to his advantage. Yes, that's correct. Couldn't you have told him that outside? Kieran pressed his lips together in an effort not to smile and expose his teeth. Nick came in here trying to play online, and I was just telling him he needed to go to bed. Oh, that rat. Pulling the parental censorship card, huh? That was just rude. Uncompromisable. If Nick weren't the victim, he'd applaud the quick thinking. But the last thing he needed was for his mom to have yet another reason to ground him. She leveled an angry stare at him. Nicky. Nicky held his arm up in surrender. Mom, don't you mom me, boy. I can't believe you do this when you know better. Get your butt in the bed right now. March. Rising from the chair, Nick growled low in his throat and cast a warning snarl at Kieran. He'd get him eventually. Kieran let out an evil closed-lip laugh. I'll show you to your room. His mom was having none of that as she blocked the doorway. He can sleep in my room with me. Kieran released a tired sigh. I wondered where Nick got his suspicious nature from. You taught him well. His mother smoothed the straight piece of blonde hair back from her face and tucked it in behind her left ear. Yeah, well, I've seen the ugly side of people too many times. No offense to you, Mr. Hunter. I assure you, I've seen an even uglier side of them than you have many times myself. Call me Kieran, please. That seemed to embarrass her. She gestured to Nick. Come on, babe. The sun's already up. You need to get some sleep. You're getting over that gunshot wound. What she didn't know was that it had healed, courtesy of some powers he didn't want her to know about. If she did, with his luck, she'd report him to the authorities and he'd end up naked in a lab somewhere as an experiment. Do I have to go to school? Since it starts in less than 2 hours? No. It won't be open today anyways, Kieran said, drawing their attention back on him. The police are still investigating it. His mom frowned. How do you know? I talked to one of Nick's teachers. Which one? Nick was dying to know. Who on the faculty to avoid for fear of them ratting him out to his fanged employer. Miss Pantal. Great, just great. She'd never thought much of him. Anyways, she was one of the lead faculty members who wanted him expelled, but there was nothing he could do about that tonight. Nick yawned as his exhaustion caught up with him. His mom tisked. See? Look how tired you are. He hated when his mom... Nick yawned as his exhaustion caught up with him. His mom tisked. See, look how tired you are. He hated when his mom asked stupid questions. It took all his restraint not to smart off, but he'd already shacked past one restraint tonight. No need to count another. So, minding his tongue, he followed her back to their room. Like Kieran's office, it was huge, bigger than their entire itty-bitty condo, which he loathed, and it had a king-sized bed, so his mom wouldn't kick him in her sleep. She spun around in bed like a rotisserie chicken, and he despised any time they had to share sleeping space. But the 4-poster bed looked like it could easily hold a family of 10 in it. The neatest part to him was that the blue and gold comforter matched the wallpaper, even the gold foil looking stuff, which was really cool on the walls. He's seen that on TV shows and horror films. His mom turned to him. How's your arm doing? You need any more medication? Nick had to force himself not to react to her question. He'd already forgotten about that again. Crap. He better remember, otherwise everyone would want to know how he healed it so fast. It's okay. Good. Now hit the sheets. Nick went to the other side and slid in. The moment he was settled, she pulled him against her and started playing in his short brown hair. He cringed and squirmed, trying to escape her. Unfortunately, she was like quicksand. Once you were dumb enough to get into its reaches, it was over. Ma, what are you doing? I can't hold you. He screwed his face up in distaste at the mere thought of it. I don't know why you're worrying about Mr. Hunter when you're the one who's always sexually harassing me, Mom. God, I can't even go to sleep without you groping me. She popped him on the butt, not hard enough to hurt, just enough to get his attention. Stop saying that. Showing my baby affection with a hug is not sexual harassment. You know, there are a lot of moms out there who have no sense of maternal instinct at all. Those who threw their kids out of their homes and into the gutter because of a single mistake, like keeping a baby they didn't want her to. His mom didn't say it, but he knew when she ranted on this topic that was a trident against her own parents who abandoned her when she was his age. Be glad you have a mother who loves you. He was glad of that a lot, since she was basically the only person on earth who did. But now that he was a full head taller than her, it was weird when she tried to cuddle him like he was a baby. He could be almost 7 feet tall like Asheron, and she'd probably still try to pull him to her lap. Sorry, Mom, I'm just really tired. I know, precious. She leaned over and brushed his hair back from his face and kissed his cheek. Good night, sleep tight. You too. Without another word, she turned over, then scooted so that she was touching him with her icy cold feet. He would protest that too, but it might hurt her feelings again. I can't wait till I'm grown and have my own place. I know you hate it now, Nick. But savor it. I promise you'll spend many more years of your life wishing you could see her again than you'll spend wishing she'd leave you alone. Nick frowned at the intrusiveness of Ambrose in his head. How is it I hear you? One day I'll teach you that power. To you. You'll be able to project your thoughts to anyone, just like I can. You will be able to read people's thoughts, too. Will I be able to read other people's thoughts like you can, too? Yes, you will. That was cool. He could definitely get used to knowing what other people were thinking. It sure would make asking girl out a lot easier if he knew going into it that she thought he was a total loser dork. When can I learn? When can I learn it? Ambrose laughed and said, Patience, boy. You still haven't learned everything about controlling the dead that you should have, or what you need to. Your buddy caused us to learning that power, and even though you survived, you really didn't learn much other than how to run from things out to kill you. Before something gets a lucky shot in, I think we should take things a little slower. I learned to crawl, then I'll teach you how to fly. Literally. Nick's eyes widened at that last bit. I'll be able to fly? Really? Kid, you have no idea what powers lie within you, what powers I'm gonna teach you, but be warned, you are going to have many enemies come at you, Parthenopaeus being one of them. Nick frowned again. Ash? Yeah, he's not what he seems, and if you have any brains in your head, and I know you do, you'll cut him a wide brief before it's too late. But he really liked Asheron. Surely someone who was so cool to be with and respectful to his mother couldn't be so bad. Everyone had problems because he and his mother had been rudely misjudged. Because he and his mother had been rudely misjudged by so many, Nick hated doing that to others. He believed in liking, not necessarily trusting, everyone until they personally gave him a reason not to. Like shooting me when I decide I don't want to live a life of crime. He heard the sound of expiration coming from his uncle. Go to sleep, kid. Tomorrow will begin a new life that you can't imagine. With people trying to kill me? Yes, and that includes your mother. Chapter 2. I'll read 2 chapters this time. Chapter 2. Nick came awake to the sensation of his mother straddling him, dressed in the black Dressed in the black t-shirt she'd slept in and jeans, she was on her knees beside him, wrangling his neck. "Ma, what are you doing?" She tightened her grip. "I'm killing you. Do you understand, boy? Dead. He coughed, trying to twist away from her. What did I do?" Growling, she released him and moved back, then popped him on the butt. "Because of the stunt you and those moron friends of yours pulled last night, I'm fired. I hope you're happy. I can barely afford to feed and shelter us now. What am I supposed to do without a job at all? I didn't graduate high school and I have no experience except as a dancer." She looked like she was about to cry. "You have no idea how awful some of those other Cliffs treat their people. I know you hate my job, but it was the only thing I could find that paid above minimum wage for someone with no skill sets or real job experience. I can't even work a cash register, never mind run a computer or do anything else." Peter won't listen to an apology. He said that he doesn't care what happened or how it happened. I'm fired and not to ever come back from my check. Not to ever come back. Not even for my check. He'll mail it to me because he don't ever want to see me again. Oh, God. What am I going to do? "Miss Gaucher, I heard there are places online where you can sell children for a good price. Nick's still young enough. He should fetch enough to tide you over for a bit." Nick Capter rose his voice from the other side of the door as she walked past their room. Normally, he loved the sound of her thick accent, but right now, thanks, Rosa, appreciate it. Major. Nick scooted across the bed, trying to get away from his mother before she started choking him again. "Kirian said he knew some people who could hire you." She stared at him as if she could really kill him. "That doesn't get you off the hook, mister. You and Bubba are going to waltz into that. Are you and Bubba going to waltz in and trick me again and cause me to lose another job? You know, most employers tend to frown on their sons bringing a brute to carry them out over their shoulder when they're supposed to be working. But it was for your own good. So's the spanking I'm about to give you." Nick leapt back onto the bed, rolled across it, then ran for the door and into the hallway where he hoped it would be safer. "I'm too big to spank. Fine, you're grounded until your grandkids are old. Kinda hard to do. How am I supposed to have grandkids if I'm grounded? Precisely my point, you demon spawn. You're never gonna get off a restriction, ever." The door at the end of the hall opened to show an irritated Kirian dressed in a pair of black pajamas, bottoms, and no shirt. He growled at them. His hair was tousled, and he had a good shadow on his face. More than that, he had a build Nick would kill for. Dang, no one at school would ever pick on him again if he was ripped like that. Kirian pinned them both with an angry scowl. "People, I really need to sleep. Can you go downstairs to shout at each other or better get outside in the yard?" His mother immediately calmed down. "I'm sorry, Mr. Hunter. We didn't mean to disturb you." Kirian raked his hand through his blonde hair, which made it stand straight up. Nick would laugh or mock it, but Kirian wasn't as attached to him as his mom was. His boss might actually kill him. "No problem. Now, if it'll help stop this fighting and save Nick's life before he can pay me back, put a call into Sanctuary on Ursuline. Ask for Nicole Peltier. She's the owner, and I've already spoken to her about you. She said to call her anytime, and they'd be more than happy to add you to payroll." But he held his hands up in an impressed gesture that actually silenced Nick's mom. Wow, to have those evil Jedi tricks. Had Nick done it, his mom really would have spanked him hard. No buts. Give her a call. I assure you, you'll love working there for them." And with that, he vanished back into his pitch-black room and shut the door. Nick let out a relieved breath. He might survive this morning yet. "Oh, don't even!" His mom turned her nasty Gorgon face back at him. "You're still not off the hook. Get your butt dressed. You have 5 minutes, rut. Don't backtalk me or argue. Not if you want to live to see noon. Get in there, shower, now. Fetch, heel, bark, Fido, bark. He really hated when she talked to him like that. Like he was nothing but a dog, with no other purpose than to obey her every whim. You know, I don't ride the short bus, Ma. I can understand you. Apparently you can't, because now you only have 4 minutes and 30 seconds before they start planning your degree. With a jubilant desire to stick his tongue out at her, he walked back into the room and into the absent bathroom so that he could obey and not stay grounded any longer than was necessary. Though at this rate it seemed like she was looking for a reason to ground him. Empty nest syndrome. She was afraid of him leaving home, so she clung to him all the tighter. Okay, that's probably not what it's called, but that's what he was calling it. Sighing, he stripped off his clothes and started the shower. Of course, it took him longer than 5 minutes to finish and dress, and when he opened the door that led back to the room, he found his mother on the bed staring furiously at him. What? I hurried. What? I hurried. Sure you did. She slid off the bed. You didn't even shave. You told me to hurry. I didn't bother looking for any razors. Besides, I only have 3 hairs. Not like anyone can see them except you. He kept hoping they'd grow longer and multiply, but so far, they were just enough to be emasculating and abrogating something else for his mom to nag at him to do. She made an annoyed sound that always reminded him of a tea kettle and let steam out. Come on, we have to catch the streetcar. Where are we going? You heard Mr. Kenyon. We're going to need to go to Sanctuary. He said to call. She rolled her eyes, something that would also have had him grounded if he'd done it to her. You don't apply for a job that way, Nick. But go! He didn't want to go across town for no reason. Why did he have to watch her apply for a job anyway? He'd rather have his eyes gouged out than sit there bored, watching the fluorescent lights flicker. Can't I stay here? No, we don't take charity, and you know that. Mr. Hunter was nice enough to put us up for the night, but you should never overstay your welcome. But, Nick, do what I say. Grinding his teeth, he headed for the stairs. He might as well take them but out of his he might as well take but out of his vocabulary, since all it seemed to do was act like a nuclear accelerant that caused her temper to explode. No sooner had he reached the bottom than he smelled something delicious, something that smelled like real juicy, delectable, make your mouth water and hardened bacon. Not those bacon bits packets his mom saved from condiment stands and added to his powdered eggs in the morning. Yum. Without curious thought, he beelined for the kitchen. His mother grabbed his arm. Where are you going? Food. I'm following my nose. And his rumbling stomach. No. She whispered to him. What part of no charity have you missed? The part that said he couldn't eat. But he knew better than to argue, especially when she had that look on her face. Fine. He headed for the door. Rosa came around the corner of the wall and followed them. Nick, Mrs. Gaucher, do you not wish to eat before you leave? He looked at his mother, hoping she'd change her mind. Thank you, Rosa. But we have an appointment to keep. Rosa's frown melted into a kind smile. The same height as his mother, she was a beautiful woman with black hair she kept in a neat bun and brown eyes. Then let me get it for you to go. His mother released his arm. No, thank you. No, thank you. We don't want to put you to any trouble. It's no trouble, Rosa assured. I made the food for you. I've already eaten, and Mr. Kenyon won't be up until much later today. If you no eat, I just throw it away. Nick gave his mom the best begging stare he and pouty lip. It was the look that let him get away with many things that didn't have a more dilemma attached to them. He saw the reluctance in her eyes. She really, really didn't like taking anything from anybody. People always expect something back when you do. Nothing in life is free, Nick. Don't take, and you won't be beholden Don't take and you won't be beholden. He knew her litany well, but he didn't view this as the same thing. You always say we shouldn't waste food, Ma. She took a deep breath before she relented. All right, thank you, Rosa. My pleasure. Wrong accent. My pleasure. You want me to? We'll eat at the table. I don't want you to put any more work. Don't want to put you to any more work. Nick all but ran to the kitchen where Rosa had 2 plates already made and sitting on the center island. The warm smell made his stomach cramp even more. Oh my God, we have pancakes and bacon? It smelled so good. He was already salivating. Rosa laughed at his eagerness. She had no idea how real meals like this were for him. Don't you want syrup? She asked as he took one of the pancakes and took a bite. Nick swallowed the delicious tasting food. We have syrup too. She pointed to the counter behind him where a huge bottle of Logo Cabin waited. Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. He grabbed it, popped up the top, and proceeded to drown the plate. His mom was more sedated as she took her food. Nick, don't use so much syrup. You won't be able to taste your food. That was the idea. Ma, it's real good syrup. It's not even watered down. Something she did to make it last longer for them whenever they were lucky enough to get some. Her face turned bright red. Rosa patted her on the hand. It's okay, Miss Gaucher. I understand what it's like to have to struggle to feed my son. Miguel and I have had many years before I came to work for Mr. Curien. You can eat as much as you want. Mr. Curien's policy is that no one goes hungry in this home. I don't know why. That's not even her accent. Thank you. Rosa inclined her head, then moved the plate full of pancakes towards Nick. But go a little easier and leave some for your mother. Too many and your stomach will hurt. Your stomach will hurt. Yeah, but it's so worth the pain. These are delicious. Thank you so much for making them. She smiled and handed him a napkin. I'm glad and joy. I'm more than enjoy. It's like all the taste buds in my mouth are singing and dancing. I bet if you listen close, you can hear them. And it got even better when she handed him a glass of freshly squeezed orange juice. Oh yeah, he was in heaven. By the time his mom had finished eating, he'd swallowed through most of the pancakes. Shaking her head, his mom took him by his uninjured arm and pulled him away from his empty plate. Come on, Boo, we need to get going. He licked the syrup off his fingers. His mom screwed her face up in disgust. Nick, you have a napkin. Please use it. Yeah, but I don't want to waste it. It's good, Ma. She let out a sigh of expiration as she met Rosa's gaze. I swear, Rosa, I have taught him better. I taught him better. It just hasn't taken yet. Not from lack of effort on my part. She laughed. I know, believe me, my Miguel is the same way. Ignoring them, Nick took one last bite before he followed his mom out of the house and down the street to the station and didn't speak much as they made their way from the fancy high-end garden district where Curien lived to the other side of the French Quarter, where the bar and restaurant called Sanctuary stood at 688 Ursuline. Something that involved their getting off the streetcar at Jackson Brewery and hoofing it a few blocks over towards the Ursuline convent that had given the street its name. Sanctuary was only 1 block from the street from it, and not that far away from his high school. He had been by the place more times than he could count. His mother said the crowd there could be rough, and she didn't want him getting hurt, so he was technically banned from it, and that statement always made him wonder how his mom knew what the crowd was like, since she'd never been inside it either. To his knowledge, however, he never asked her. It fell into the category of, don't ask because you'll only get a stupid parent answer. If all your friends jump off of a bridge because I said so, as long as you live under my roof, and so on. Sanctuary Sanctuary aside, Nick had always loved coming to the quarter as an escape from the rundown condo and neighborhood. There was something about it that soothed every Cajun root inside of him. The history, the beauty, the mixture of culture, smells, foods, and people. No place else on earth was like it. Not that he'd ever been anywhere else except for Laurel or Jackson, Mississippi, whenever they had to evacuate for hurricanes. And then he'd only seen parking lots of whatever store or mall they'd made temporary camp in. Their rusted out Yogo. He paused as he came even to the Café du Monde that sat at the edge of the French market, and the smell of the. Oh dang! We've been reading for how long? 35 minutes. How many pages are left? Hold on, guys. 1, 2. Give me a second till the end of the chapter. Okay, guys, we are actually pretty far away from the next chapter, so I will be reading that later. So we are on page 33, the very beginning of page 33. So thank you for staying with me while we read the book. Very much appreciate it. It is Chronicles of Nick, Book 2 by Sherilyn Kenyon. I'll put that in the YouTube description, but still. And we read 1.5 chapters today, guys. That's really good. I promise not every outro will be this long. Just the first one. So get ready for this series. And I have a couple more series on the way for different books, so keep an eye out for those. Thank you for listening, and I will see you all in the next chapter. Bye.